Good evening to you, and thank you for selecting GBC 24. And it's time to bring you Legends of Our Time, your personality profile show where we celebrate people who are contributing so much towards society's development. My name is Gifty Adjei. Today we are thankful to feature a member of one of the key groups in the then colonial days who facilitated the Gold Coast struggle towards independence. My guest is a veteran who fought during the Second World War on behalf of the colonial masters, the British. Again, he happens to be the only surviving ex-serviceman who was involved in the 28th February 1948 Christiansborg Castle Road shooting incident that killed 3 servicemen who he and his colleagues marched to the Christiansborg Castle to present their petition to the colonial government. Trust me, he has so much to share with us and so much for us to learn from him. I'll quickly take a break, and when I come back, I introduce my guest for tonight. Please stay. Welcome back. My guest for tonight is ex-Private Adjei Hammond. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We are grateful. Yeah. Thank you. Now, tell us, you were enlisted into the Gold Coast Army at an early age of 16 years.
Exactly.
Weren't you that young at the time?
I was young.
But what influenced your selection into the Gold Coast Army?
The reason is when I attended the Presbyterian Senior Boarding School, and you know, the Army, they inspire me. So after my schooling, I decided to join the Army, 1943.
Okay.
When I joined the Army, I was trained at MTTC, where the police headquarters is situated now. It was our camp, 1943. I went through all my technical training to learn mechanical training about vehicles. During those days, there was no diesel engines. They trained us to work on these petrol engines. I went through my training with flying colors. After my training, I was posted to Takra, the 3rd Advanced Base Workshops.
Okay.
I was there. Later on, an order came from the General Headquarters, Achimata, that all driving officers must be well-trained mechanical men, but not just ordinary drivers. So I was asked to drive the officers because, you know, I went through all this training. So I was selected to drive the officers. Our commanding officer, our OC, was Major Brunner. We had so many officers. The second in command was Captain Chipling. Then we had Lieutenant Booth, Lieutenant Richardson, and then later on, Lieutenant Day also came.
Okay, that's interesting. Now let's look at the journey from Takrady to Burma to fight in the Second World War.
Yes.
Briefly take us through. How did the journey start for you?
1943, later part of November.
Okay.
We were selected, 10 of us from the unit, to go to the war. There's no doubt I can mention their names, but okay. Ibio Kain, Granton, Anoba, Crensil, and Amolu, all these people, some of them, my colleagues, we went to the harbor. And we saw a very huge ship, HMS Sakasha. And we saw about approximately 2,000 and half troops on board. So
that's 2,500 people.
2,500 troops on board. And then we joined. About a couple of days later, we started our journey from Takoradi, 1943, November. We spent about 2 days. The third day, we arrived in Sierra Leone. We went on excursion. It's a hilly place, so always rain. It rains almost every day. And very interesting, they have a natural harbor. The natural harbor, so many ships come in and leave, And when we arrived, we went to the town, excursion about half a day. We went round, then we returned to our ship. The following day, at dawn, when we woke up from under the deck, we saw so many ships.
Yeah.
We were surprised. Honestly, I don't know where the ships came from. But we set sail. About a few hours later, I saw a submarine came out from the harbor. And then later on, all the ships started blowing their sirens. Boom, 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 boom. Then we set sail. Actually, we came there alone, HMS Sakasha, but we left with 21 ships, convoy. We all set sail. Intermittently, I saw, because you know I've been reading about these naval warships, so I know it. 2 destroyers on the right-hand side, and 1 cruiser, very big battleship on the other side, the same on the left. We continue our journey, but occasionally 12 Hurricane fighters used to fly over the convoy, protecting our convoy. And then occasionally all the ships will blow their sirens, then we change course. So actually on our journey we started with zigzag course. So we were surprised. Why didn't we go straight, but rather zigzag? So one day we asked the officers, why is it that we have been going zigzag course? They said, you know, because the German submarines, they run very, very fast. And if we go straight, they will overtake us and destroy all our ships with torpedoes. That is why we have, that is why we have been going zigzag course. We continue like that until we reach Gibraltar. When we arrive at Gibraltar, the following day, at dawn, we didn't see the other ships again. They vanished. We don't know where they went.
Okay.
But we alone, our ship alone, entered the Mediterranean Sea. We traveled until we arrived at Port Said, Egypt. Port Said, then we entered the Suez Canal. We stayed about 1 or 2 days there, then we entered the Suez Canal. Suez Canal from Port Said to Port Suez is 100 miles. We sailed through the Suez Canal, and then the following day we stopped. We were all ferried by landing craft to the seaside, you know, to exercise our limbs before we stayed on the boat for quite a long time. So we all engaged in sports, some running, boxing, and all sorts of sports. From morning, 8 o'clock, until 4 o'clock in the evening. Then we went back into our landing craft, then to the ship again. We set sail again. From Suez Canal, we traveled, we sailed until we entered the Red Sea. The Red Sea is a very calm, like a river. It's not like a wave with waves like the main sea. No, there are no waves, only very calm. And people always think that when they say the Red Sea,
the color is red.
The color is red. It's not red. Historically, you know, when Moses raised his stick, his staff, when God asked him to do that, the sea parted into two. And Pharaoh's soldiers, they all run after the Israelites. When they entered into the sea area, the whole sea covered them.
Yes.
So there were a lot of casualties and death. That was why, because plenty of blood. That was why they mentioned
the
Red Sea. But the color is not red.
Okay.
And then when we were passing through, very interesting, we saw two pillars. One at the right-hand side, very far, white, and the other one too white on the left. So we asked them, what did the officer? They say, this is the point where Moses crossed the Red Sea with the Israelites.
Okay.
Very interesting.
So when did you finally get to Burma, India?
India. We spent 6 weeks on the sea. We passed through Aden. Now it's Yemen Republic. They are fighting there now. Then from there, we traveled through the Indian Ocean, about 5 to 6 days. The 6th day, we arrived in Bombay, in India. Then India, we were on board when one very huge officer came, about 6'5", a real soldier that whoever sees him will be inspired. Not knowing that that man, Brigadier W. Weston, later he became our brigade commander during the war. He came and visited us, he spoke with us, encouraged us, and then when he left, 12 ambulances came, driven by Indian military girls with 2 officers, 1 captain and 1 lieutenant, to evacuate the sick people on board our ship. A lot of our men fell sick, so they were evacuated to hospital. We left them. Just about a few yards from the harbor, there was a train station there. We had our breakfast, and later we were all asked to board the train. We said 6:30 sharp, we started our journey by train. The whole day we traveled. It was the first time that I passed through a tunnel, on a very huge tunnel. We passed through it from here to the castle. When we came out, we continued our journey until about 8 o'clock in the night, when the train stopped. That place is called Den, about 5 miles to Pune city. We didn't know. We were strangers. It was pitch dark, so we all alighted from the train. There were, guides, escorted the soldiers, because when you get lost, nobody will see you again. We started walking. About a couple of miles, 2 miles, we all walk. So normally what we used to do is, if you want to rest, because if you are late and you get lost, nobody will see you again. So you will walk very fast in front of the soldiers, the other troops. You will sit down. When they come, they reach there, then you get up. We continue our walking until we reach a camp. Then we heard somebody shouting, "Where are the Gold Coast people? Where?" We said, "We're all here." Later on, he was Sergeant Okai.
Okay.
And then his deputy was Corporal Okole, our instructors. And our camp, the name of our camp was Kumasi Company. Later on, we learned that within the vicinity, there were other troops too, Nigerian troops, and their camp was called Sokoto Company.
Okay.
And then the Sierra Leone and Gambian troops also, the same distances, also Batos Company. But normally, occasionally, we come to play football, all of us. But we used to, the war training, we all used to mingle. The Nigerian troops used to come, Sierra Leone and Gambian troops, or then we go to our assault course. We call it assault course. Sometimes we will go to maneuvers, military term. Then we were trained for some time. Later on, when we concluded our training, but a lot of people died there, even during the training. When during our training, you see ambulance standing. If anybody dies or get wounded, the ambulance will take him straight away to the hospital. But if you die, it will take you.
So how did you keep track of all this history? Did you carry a diary?
It's in my memory. I have a very retentive memory. I remember all. And you know one interesting thing?
No, please tell.
During the war, God is wonderful. All my experience during the war, occasionally when I sit down in my house, like a video film, it used to come. I see it. During the war, when fighting, crossing river, and so forth, I used to see all. For some time, I'll be watching like this. It's printed on my memory, and it will never leave me.
That's
until
great.
I die.
That's great.
Yes.
Now, tell us some of the fascinating stories that you still remember from Burma.
You know, first of all, in India, we were trained. All the troops were trained in India. Some were after our first training, we went to second training again. Some of the troops were trained in Chittagong. Now it's Bangladesh. It's changed, and then few miles away from Chittagong, Khulna, we train other troops there. We were trained there. I belong to the 82nd Division. We had two divisions, 81st Division. Our troops are still using the insignia. When you see some of our troops, the Spider, you will see Spider here. It's 81st Division, comprised of 5th, 6th, and 7th battalions. And then 82nd Battalion is the two cross spear. Our people still use it here. 82nd Division. We all went to the war, but the 81st went into the war first. We were trained. So I was trained in Khulna. From Khulna, you enter into Chiringa. From Chittagong, you enter into the war zone. But one thing that people don't know, you see, actually, the war started from India. So all the headquarters was based in India. All. You see, the Japanese conquered all the islands around Burma. And Burma is the main British base. And the Japanese invaded the place and chased the British out with all their troops. So they run with their troops to India. And the Japanese followed them into India. They captured some of the places when they entered into India, some of the towns. So when our troops arrived, actually, we had to push them out. We had to fight them. Otherwise, it would be too battlefront.
Was it difficult fighting them?
It was a ferocious fighting. According to 81st, they started the fighting first. Later part of 1942. But we arrived 43. And we started our training. They had their training earlier. So they started the fighting. They had to push them. Otherwise, we will have two battlefronts, one in Burma and one in India. But we had to push them. It was a ferocious, because they dug in and they captured some of the towns there around the borders. We had to flush them out. We fought ferocious fighters, Japanese. I've never seen great fighters like Japanese. They don't care. They believe that when you die in war, you go to
Heaven.
the Almighty God, heaven.
Okay.
So they don't care to die. So it's difficult to capture a Japanese. When we were on board coming, they gave us some ropes. They deceived us. They told us that these ropes, when you capture a Japanese, you tie him. A Japanese, you tie a Japanese. It's a lie.
Why?
They don't care. They prefer rather to die. It's an honor to their family. When they capture you as a prisoner, you disgrace your family. So they prefer rather to die.
To die.
And when you die, it's an honor to the family.
Anyway, if you just joined us, you're watching Legends of Our Time on GBC 24. This is the platform where we celebrate great personalities who are actually contributing so much towards society's development. Today we are privileged enough to have an ex-private, he's Mr. Adjei Hammond, a war veteran from Second World War, telling us his experience. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more. Please stay. Again, it's still live on GBC 24, and the program is Legend of Our Time. Today we have a guest who is a veteran, ex-private Adjei Hammond, and he's telling us so much about the Second World War. So I'll go back to him and then we'll continue the conversation. Ex-private, tell us some of the horrific scenes that you witnessed on the war front.
It was so fearful. Whoever has not experienced war before, it's not a child's play. After we crossed, 81st Division pushed the Japanese into Burma. They established their bridgehead. All our equipment, supplies went there. They started the fighting. We chained them. We also, later on, chained them, 6 months. We also followed. We changed them at Butidon. It's called Butidon. We continued the fighting. When we went, they came back to rest. 81st Division, 5th, 6th, and 7th Battalion. The Nigerians also contributed the same. They contributed 3 battalions, and also the Gambia and Sierra Leone troops also contributed 3 battalions, making 9 battalions, and 10 battalions from a division, commanded by a general. Our divisional commander was General Stockwell.
Okay.
81st, their divisional commander was, I was not among them, but we know them. Their general, General Woolner. But our divisional commander was General Stockwell. And our brigade commander was the one that I said he came to Bombay to welcome us. You remember, I said, a very huge man, about 6'5",
Yeah.
with hairs all over the body. He became our brigade commander, Brigadier W. Weston. He became the... You know, we fought at so many sectors. We had a very broad terrain. Some of our troops fought on the Akyap, the coastal line. Especially the signal regiment. The brigade commander always goes with the signal regiment because they used to tell us exactly the position of the Japanese. Then we plan our strategy, how to attack them. The signal regiment, they used to do that. So the brigade headquarters goes with them. They fought at Akyap. We fought at the Mandalay, going to Rangoon.
Yeah, Rangoon.
Going to the capital, Rangoon Road. Others too fought at another sector, like this. So we fought at the Mandalay. And near the Arawade River, where the river passes, we fought there. At one point, we crossed the river at Mabu. They call it, others call it Mabu, but we call it Mabu. We crossed. We lost 6 men there. During the crossing, they made a mistake. Instead of going quickly, you know, maneuvering, the rubber dinghy, we call it rubber dinghy, 6 people in it, the rubber boat, they delayed. So they realized that they were going to land at enemy territory. So they had to paddle quickly, and unfortunately, the rubber dinghy capsized.
Wow.
And it washed the whole 6 people away. We saw them going. What could we do?
You couldn't rescue them.
It was war. Very pathetic. We saw all of them going in the Arawade River. And this very river, very interesting. This very river, sometimes when they kill somebody, and unfortunately nobody sees the person, later on you see that it's floating on the water. The same water is the one that
you drink.
We drink.
Oh.
No water anywhere. So our water bottle, they put chemical inside, like salt. It's difficult to drink it. We just gargle in your mouth, gargle it, and the little that will go into your throat is finished. Nowhere, only this thing, only this water. Dead bodies float on it, but in the water. But we had,
and that was
we had
what
no
you
choice.
Drank throughout the duration.
And one thing that is very interesting, we carry many socks, because when you cross the river, about 3 days fighting, non-stop, continue the fighting, the same socks, that the wet socks is in your shoes, no time to change it. So when the fighting subsides a bit, then we change our very stingy. We throw it away.
And where do you want?
The same water wash our food. Immediately you put another one. Put it in yours, because the moment you delay, when the whistle goes, you have to move. And sometimes we short of food. About 3-4 days. Sometimes we short of food, no food, rely on our biscuit and corned beef, finish. Until a parachute, the plane, will drop food for us and ammunition on the ground. Then we continue the fighting.
But were there times that you had to feed on strange animals like snakes, lizards?
As for snakes, is abundant. Snakes are abundant.
You ate a lot of them.
We don't fear them. There were a lot of tigers through there. But you see, animals, because of the gun, shooting and so forth, they all run away. But as for snakes, a lot.
You ate them?
The snake, always we have a knife. We call it machete. When we are passing under the tree, we watch it. Secondly, we watch the trees always when we are fighting, because there were a lot of snipers, the Japanese.
Okay.
Inside the tree, they kill lots of people. I remember that during our fighting, this footpath, you know, we had officers, and WO1 or 2, the British sergeants and staff sergeants among. But when we, on the footpath, sometimes before the next day, you see there were 6, 7 or whites will die, but not a black. Not knowing that the snipers in the tree, they aim at the white collar in the dark and shoot.
But they couldn't see the black people because of the color.
Because of the
complexion.
So God save us because of our color. But they picked the whites from among us. So later on, when they realized that this is what was happening, they brought camouflage ointment to put it in their face and all.
To appear darker.
You see. So we used to teach them that you call us sometimes, you insult us, you say black monkey, black monkey. You see that God has helped us. now you see your calamity. so,
okay, please go ahead.
Calamity. And we continue. Sometimes the fighting was so intense that 3 days we could not push the Japanese. We had to seek help from second light battery. We give them their position, then lob all our artillery to their positions. Heavy bombardment. And the whole ground, you see, will be shaking like this. The Japanese used to do it. When they drop their bombs, at the same time, the artillery shelling our positions, the whole ground will be shaking. And also, one thing that we used to do, the moment the fighting subsides a little, we all dig trenches.
Right.
We don't, yes,
Why?
we dig trenches because if you lie on the bare ground, very conspicuous place, snipers will spot you and shoot you. But in the trenches, it saves us from the artillery shells, and then the bomb also, it saves us from, but occasionally we are in the, and when we are in the trench and it's raining, it's on you. We use our raincoat, we call it cape, over us, but you have to sit in the trench and then the rain.
Okay, so now finally you came back to the Gold Coast after how many years in Burma?
From 1943, 45, end of 45, when the war ended.
Okay.
We came back. Actually, what happened? During the fighting, when we crossed Mabu, you remember, I said we crossed the river at Mabu. We continued the fighting. There was a town called Kindongi. Kindongi, all of a sudden, I realized that, something happened. My eye, this eye, it started protruding. The officers saw it. They were surprised. I was really sick. So I was flown by Piper plane, 3 of us, other wounded people, to 35 General Hospital in India. 35 General Hospital in India. But there was no well-equipped eye section. So I was transported by ambulance train with my other colleagues from Kola, Vela, Bangalore, Kolhapur, then in Pune City. About 10 miles away from Pune City, a very huge hospital with 6 operation theaters.
At the time?
At the time, as far back as 1943, 6 operation theaters. The patients, Africans, Europeans, Indians, everybody. 40th General Military Hospital. It was based there.
Okay. So you finally came to back to.
Then I was, according to my eye specialist, I was boarded category C in India. Doctors, military doctors. According to the doctors, Dr. Lieutenant Crockett, the eye specialist, he said a contaminated blood might be, I touched it, maybe somebody was wounded.
Anytime.
I touched it, contaminated because of the bullet.
Okay.
And then, no handkerchief, we were fighting. So maybe my hand touched my face, and the disease in my eyes, in my discharge, the original one, it was called palytitis and chorotitis, according to the doctor. This is the name, the medical term.
Okay, for the disease, the kind of disease you got.
Yeah, the disease, palytitis and chorotitis. It was in my discharge book. Then when I was based there, admitted at the hospital, I was treated.
And discharged.
And discharged.
Okay.
I was not discharged, I was there. I should have gone back to the theater, fighting theater in Burma. Fortunately, the war came to an end.
And he had to come back to the Gold Coast.